Let's be brutally honest. When a woman cheats, something inside her dies, something she thought would set her free, but it doesn't. It traps her in a silent cage of guilt, confusion, and regret she'll never admit out loud. And while she tells herself she's moved on, deep down, she knows she's lost something she'll never get back. Most people think cheating is just about betrayal, but it's deeper than that. When a woman cheats, she crosses a psychological line she can't uncross, and the biggest mistake she makes afterward isn't the act itself. It's what she tries to do after it's over. She thinks she can rewrite the story. She thinks if she hides the truth, changes her behavior, or suddenly becomes nicer, the man she betrayed will sense her remorse and forgive her, without ever knowing what really happened. But that's where she destroys herself, because men may not always know what's wrong, but they feel it. The energy shifts, the connection dulls, the respect disappears without reason, and suddenly, what used to be love starts to rot quietly beneath the surface. You see, the biggest mistake women make after cheating isn't lying. It's trying to control how they're perceived afterward. They want to keep their image clean, to erase the evidence, to convince themselves they're still good. But what they don't realize is that guilt always leaks through behavior. It shows up in their eyes, their tone, their sudden need to reconnect. That desperation gives them away. Psychologically, most women cheat not because they stop loving the man, but because they stop feeling desired by him. And after the act, they chase that lost validation from the very man they betrayed, hoping to fix their shattered self-worth. But here's the irony. The more they try to make things right, the more unnatural it feels. The man senses something off, even if he can't name it. His subconscious starts piecing it together. She's different. She's distant, yet overly affectionate. She avoids eye contact, but asks more questions. She laughs at things that aren't funny, gets emotional at random, and seems to be performing love instead of feeling it. That's where the reverse psychology begins. Because when a woman cheats, her guilt drives her to seek forgiveness without confession. She wants him to love her enough to erase her sin, while she pretends nothing happened. And it never works. Men, this is where you need to open your eyes. If you ever sense something's off after she suddenly changed, don't rush to fix it. Don't beg for answers or chase clarity. Silence is your power here, because the moment you start overanalyzing, she gains control. She sees your confusion as weakness. But when you stay calm and detached, when you let her guilt echo in her own mind, she starts to crumble. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. Her conscience will do the work for you. Every time she looks at you and sees you unbothered, every time she expects you to break and you don't, she feels the weight of what she's done. Because nothing haunts a guilty woman more than a man she can't read. That's the essence of reverse psychology. When you stop trying to prove your worth after betrayal, you flip the dynamic completely. You become the mirror that forces her to confront her truth. And that truth will eat her alive. The biggest mistake women make after cheating is thinking they can escape accountability by acting normal. But love doesn't die from distance. It dies from deceit. And every fake smile, every overcompensation, every forced laugh only amplifies the lie. She'll try to convince herself that it didn't mean anything, that it just happened, that you weren't there. But what she doesn't understand is that the moment she betrayed you, she also betrayed her own reflection. She's no longer the woman she thought she was, and that realization hits her every time she looks in the mirror. When she scrolls her phone and sees your name, her heart skips not from love, but from guilt. When she watches you move on, rebuild, or simply not react, that silence becomes punishment, because silence tells the truth she tried to bury. So if you've ever felt that eerie shift after she cheated, or even suspected it, understand this. Her biggest mistake wasn't the affair. It was thinking she could outsmart her own emotions. You can't fake peace when your soul is fractured. You can't act loyal when your conscience is screaming. That's why most women who cheat spiral afterward. They either overcorrect, trying to be the perfect girlfriend overnight, or they self-destruct, convinced they're unworthy of real love. Both outcomes lead to the same destination, emptiness. And while she's out there pretending to heal, you, if you stay grounded, silent, and strong, become her mirror. The one reflection she can't escape, no matter how far she runs. because the universe has a cruel way of restoring balance. Every act of deception carries a debt. And for most women who cheat, the debt isn't paid with exposure. It's paid with endless guilt, sleepless nights, and the haunting memory of the man they could have respected, but lost forever. There's a strange silence that follows cheating. It's not the kind of silence that brings peace. It's the kind that eats her alive. Because when a woman betrays a man who genuinely loved her, she doesn't just lose him. She loses the version of herself that felt worthy of that love. And this is where most people misunderstand female psychology. They think women cheat because they've fallen out of love. But that's not usually true. Most women cheat because they crave feeling wanted again. They want to feel seen, admired, desired, and when that need isn't met, they chase it elsewhere, thinking it'll make them whole. But the moment it's over, something inside them collapses. That collapse isn't visible at first. She'll try to mask it with confidence, with laughter, with fake calm. She'll post pictures, say she's doing fine, pretend she's unbothered, but her body knows the truth. Guilt has a way of living in the skin, in the eyes, the breath, the posture. You can sense it even when she says she's moved on, because deep down, she knows she traded emotional safety for temporary attention, and that's a trade no one ever wins. Here's what happens next, and this is something almost no one talks about. After cheating, a woman's mind enters a stage of psychological confusion called cognitive dissonance. She's split in two. One part wants to justify her choice, to convince herself she deserved it, that the relationship was already broken. But the other part, the part that remembers your kindness, your loyalty, your quiet consistency, that part starts to ache. That's the moment she starts sabotaging herself. She begins overthinking every interaction. She'll replay moments in her head, wondering if you know. She becomes hypersensitive to your tone, to your silence, to the way you look at her. Every calm word from you feels like judgment. Every pause feels like a test. And here's where her biggest mistake deepens. She starts trying to control your perception of her. She'll go out of her way to appear loyal now, to over-explain, to make sure you trust her again. But the more she tries to convince you, the more her energy exposes her. Because real innocence doesn't need validation. Only guilt does. This is where you, the man, must understand your power. You don't need to punish her. You don't need to expose her. You simply need to observe. Because a woman's guilt can't survive in silence. It feeds off reassurance. If you don't give her that, it starts eating her alive. And slowly, that guilt turns into projection. She'll start accusing you of the very things she's done. She'll question your loyalty, your messages, your whereabouts, not because you're unfaithful, but because she's trying to escape her own reflection. Her mind is searching for balance. She feels like if she can make you look flawed, her betrayal will feel less severe. That's the twisted comfort of guilt. It seeks equality, even in pain. This is why so many women, after cheating, end up sabotaging their own happiness. They can't stand the version of themselves they've become. So they pick fights, create drama, stir emotional chaos, not because they hate you, but because they hate themselves. It's easier to live in conflict than to sit in shame. Here's the psychological truth most men don't realize. A guilty woman doesn't want forgiveness. She wants escape. She wants you to react, to yell, to cry, to leave, because that reaction gives her relief. It means the story has a clear ending. But when you stay silent, when you stay calm and grounded, she's forced to sit with her choices. That's reverse psychology at its finest. The less you respond, the louder her conscience becomes. Over time, that guilt turns into obsession. She starts missing you not because she loves you, but because she needs your presence to feel human again. You represented her moral anchor. You represented the part of her that was good. Without that, she starts losing her sense of self. And that's the moment she realizes the depth of what she's destroyed. She thought cheating gave her freedom. But what she really got was a lifetime membership to regret. Because once a woman crosses that line, every relationship after you feels shallow. No matter how much attention she gets, it never feels as pure. She'll compare every new man to you. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. You made her feel safe enough to be vulnerable, and that kind of bond doesn't come twice. Now here's what most men do wrong in this stage. They try to make her regret it by seeking revenge, sleeping around, or begging her to admit the truth. But that only validates her ego. It tells her she still has emotional control over you. The real power move? Detach completely. Move with quiet strength. Let her guilt become her punishment. Because guilt is not a moment, it's a disease. It follows her into every mirror, every message, every future relationship. She'll try to outrun it, but deep down she'll always remember the man who didn't break, didn't beg, and didn't chase. That image will haunt her far longer than any angry words could. And here's where the real twist comes in. When she finally tries to come back, and yes, many do, it won't be out of love. It'll be out of a desperate need for redemption. She'll want to feel good again, to be seen by the one man she knows she hurt. But by then, you'll have evolved past her, and nothing stings a woman's ego more than realizing the man she betrayed no longer needs her. Because that's the ultimate reversal. She loses you twice, once in betrayal and again in silence. And while she tries to rewrite her story to make herself look like the victim, life has a way of revealing truth in subtle ways. The people she thought would never know start sensing something. Her confidence wavers, her energy shifts, and that mask she put on, it starts to crack. That's karma. Not in a mystical way, but in a psychological one, because every action leaves an imprint on the soul. And when a woman betrays a man who loved her purely, that imprint becomes her shadow. There comes a moment, usually quiet, always haunting, when her guilt turns into obsession. It happens slowly, almost invisibly. At first, she thinks she's fine. She convinces herself that the cheating was a mistake, a moment of weakness, something she can bury under distraction and time. But time doesn't heal guilt, it magnifies it. Because guilt isn't just about what she did to you, it's about what she did to herself. Every woman who cheats eventually realizes that what she thought was empowerment was actually emotional self-destruction. She believed that stepping outside the relationship would make her feel alive again. But what it really did was kill the part of her that could love without fear. And this is the stage where the psychological loop begins, the one most women never escape. After cheating, she can't look at you the same way, not because you've changed, but because she can't handle your innocence anymore. Your loyalty becomes her mirror. Every kind word reminds her of the man she betrayed. Every calm action reminds her of the man she wasn't loyal to. That's why so many women start picking fights after infidelity. They need you to show anger, to make you look flawed, to justify their guilt. If she can get you to yell, to insult her, to act cold, she can tell herself, see? That's why I did it. He's cruel, he doesn't care. But when you refuse to react, when you remain unshaken, that's when she breaks, because you've taken away her only escape route. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance collapse. It's the moment when her justifications no longer work. She can't blame you. She can't hide behind excuses. The story she told herself starts falling apart, piece by piece, and when that happens, she begins to spiral. At first, she'll become distant, cold, unavailable. Then she'll swing the other way, suddenly warm, emotional, affectionate. That swing isn't love returning, it's guilt transforming into obsession. Because here's the truth. Once you stop chasing, she starts chasing you. Not because she suddenly values you, but because your emotional detachment triggers her deepest fear, losing control. You see, when she cheated, she felt powerful. She felt like she had options, that she was in control of the emotional dynamic. But when you pulled back, when you became unavailable, when you didn't break, she lost that illusion of power. Now she's stuck replaying everything in her head. Every text, every touch, every moment of distance. She'll wonder what you're thinking, who you're with, whether you still care. She'll stalk your social media, look for signs of your new life, analyze every change in your tone. And the more indifferent you appear, the more she craves your attention. That's how reverse psychology works on a deeper emotional level. When you pull away, she projects her guilt onto desire. She mistakes her regret for attraction. Suddenly, she misses you. Suddenly, she realizes your value. But that's not love. That's emotional withdrawal. It's her brain trying to reclaim the stability she lost. Here's where most men fall into the trap. When she reaches out again, crying, apologizing, confessing how much she regrets it, the instinct is to see it as closure. But understand this clearly. Her return isn't a sign of healing. It's a sign of addiction. She's addicted to the feeling of emotional safety she once had with you. She's addicted to being forgiven. And if you give her that too easily, you'll destroy your leverage. The truth is, the moment you forgive too soon, she feels relieved, not changed. The guilt disappears, and she subconsciously tells herself, "He'll always take me back." That's when the cycle resets. She learns nothing. You lose power. But if you remain silent, if you stay composed, strong, and emotionally disciplined, she begins to realize something terrifying. She's not in control anymore. She's the one waiting. She's the one checking her phone. She's the one craving answers. And that realization hits a woman harder than any insult ever could. Because now, you've become the mystery. And nothing drives attraction in a woman's mind more than mystery wrapped in strength. She'll start romanticizing the past, replaying your best moments, remembering every small thing she used to take for granted, the way you looked at her, the way you protected her, the way you made her feel seen. That nostalgia will start to consume her. She'll start wondering if you've moved on. She'll start imagining another woman receiving the kind of attention she once had, and that's when the emotional panic sets in. But here's the secret. Your silence must not come from spite. It must come from peace. Because the real power isn't in making her regret losing you. It's in genuinely moving on. True emotional detachment isn't pretending not to care. It's realizing you don't need to care. And when you reach that level of calm, when your self-worth becomes your center instead of her validation, she'll feel it. Even if she's far away, even if months have passed, she'll feel the shift. Women have a powerful emotional radar. They can sense when a man's energy no longer revolves around them. That's what breaks her. Not your anger, not your silence, but your peace. Because peace means she's lost her power. It means you've evolved beyond her. It means she no longer defines your worth. And that's the emotional death blow for a woman who cheated. She can rebuild her life, date new men, post her smiles online, but she'll always remember the one man she couldn't manipulate, the one man who didn't crumble, the one man who walked away with dignity. That's why you must never chase closure from someone who betrayed you. You already have it. The betrayal was the closure. The lesson isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. Because when you detach, you become untouchable. And no amount of guilt, regret, or manipulation can shake a man who's at peace with his past. So while she's busy battling the ghost of her own choices, you'll be building something far more powerful, a life she'll never have access to again. And that is the greatest revenge of all. There's a moment every betrayed man reaches, not when he's angry, not when he's broken, but when he finally understands. It's not about her anymore. It's about him. The day he stops asking, "Why did she do this to me?" and starts asking, "What did this teach me about myself?" that's the day he becomes untouchable. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't destroy strong men. It awakens them. When a woman cheats, she exposes more than her weakness. She reveals the cracks in the foundation of the relationship. Maybe you were too available. Maybe you ignored your instincts. Maybe you loved her more than you respected yourself. And that's the hardest truth for most men to swallow. Sometimes the wound wasn't created by her alone. It was allowed by the parts of you that refused to set boundaries. But once that pain hits, once the illusion shatters, something inside you shifts forever. You stop needing her to validate your worth. You stop trying to convince her, or anyone, that you're enough. Because for the first time in your life, you see what real self-respect feels like. She cheated to feel powerful. But what she never realized is that her betrayal became your initiation. It broke the version of you that lived for her approval and birthed the version that lives for his purpose. That's what real men do with pain. They transmute it. They don't beg for closure, they become closure. They don't chase validation, they create validation through growth, through silence, through discipline. Because here's the irony. While she's trying to escape the guilt of what she did, you're learning to master the strength of who you are. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Let me tell you something most women will never admit. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop trying to prove anything, she feels it. It unsettles her. Because now she's no longer the center of your emotional world. You've taken back the one thing she unknowingly depended on, your attention. And when you take that away, you shift the power dynamic completely. Every time you choose silence over argument, purpose over pain, progress over pity, you show her something no words ever could. You show her that she was replaceable, but your peace is not. That's when she starts remembering the man she thought she could break, and realizes he was the one thing that truly grounded her. And that realization doesn't come with tears. It comes with haunting clarity. She begins to see the cost of what she lost, not because you told her, but because life keeps showing her. Every relationship after you feels unstable. Every man she meets feels like an imitation, because deep down, she knows she'll never earn the respect of a man who once gave her unconditional trust and watched her destroy it. But this story isn't about her anymore. It's about you. You can't control her guilt. You can't fix her wounds. You can't change the past. But what you can do is become the kind of man who never has to fear betrayal again. Not because women change, but because your standards do. When a man learns to walk alone, he becomes magnetic. Not because he's playing games, but because his energy says, "I'm whole without you." And that energy is rare. It's the kind that commands respect without words. Women feel it instantly. They can sense when a man's self-worth isn't tied to attention, when he doesn't chase, when he doesn't need validation to feel complete. That's what makes them chase. Not manipulation, not mind games, but certainty. And that certainty only comes from one place: solitude. Because here's the part no one tells you. Healing isn't about moving on to someone new. It's about sitting with yourself long enough to remember who you were before the pain, before you begged, before you doubted your own worth. It's about rebuilding your self-respect from the ground up, brick by brick, day by day. Every workout, every silent night you don't text her, every moment you choose growth over gossip. That's how you win, not by hurting her, not by proving you're better, but by outgrowing the version of you that needed her to feel whole. And when she finally realizes you're no longer angry, that you've truly moved on, it'll hit her harder than any revenge ever could, because indifference is louder than hate. You see, a man's silence after betrayal is not emptiness, it's rebirth. It's a declaration that he refuses to let pain define his worth. And when you walk in that energy, you attract a different kind of woman. One who values loyalty, respect, and peace over attention, validation, and chaos. That's the power of reverse psychology at its highest level. You don't manipulate anyone. You master yourself so completely that others can't manipulate you anymore. She'll remember that version of you. The man who didn't crumble, the man who didn't chase, the man who turned heartbreak into evolution. Because that kind of transformation burns an image into her mind that never fades. She'll compare every man after you to the one she couldn't break. She'll remember your silence, your discipline, your calm, and it'll echo every time she wonders why her life still feels empty. That's the ultimate victory. You didn't just survive betrayal, you transcended it. So let her live with her guilt, let her face her reflection. You keep building, because one day when she looks back, she'll realize that losing you wasn't a punishment. It was the moment her life began to decline and yours began to rise. And when that day comes, you won't even need to say a word. Your life will speak louder than her apologies ever could. Now, I want you to ask yourself something. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it just because you didn't want to lose them? What did it teach you about your own worth? Share your truth in the comments below. Your story might wake another man up tonight. And if this message hit you deep, don't just scroll away. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who needs to hear it. Because somewhere out there, a man is blaming himself for her betrayal, when in reality, It was the greatest gift life ever gave him.